Alright, so with Mario's 40th anniversary right around the corner, and by right around the corner, I mean in literally less than a week, the question has naturally come of what Nintendo is going to do for the plumber's 40th anniversary. Because so far, Nintendo has remained practically radio silent on any potential plans for Mario's 40th anniversary. And that's why I'm making this video, to basically discuss what I think are the most likely games to be released for the 40th anniversary of the Super Mario Bros. Franchise. So generally, I will go from the most likely games to be released for Mario's 40th to the least likely, but that order might be skewed as the video continues. So starting off with the game I believe is most likely to be released for Mario's 40th anniversary is a remastered or HD port of Mario Galaxy 2. And like, I don't think I even have to go into much reasoning for this. I mean, Nintendo loves re-releasing their old games for their current hardware. They have been doing this for decades, especially during the Switch era. And this would be another easy way to squeeze that nostalgic money out of their fans. And with this game not being included in 3D All-Stars, it just makes more and more sense why Nintendo would re-release this for Mario's 40th. Now, I believe the reason why some people have said Galaxy 2 wasn't a part of 3D All-Stars is because the game utilizes motion controls more than Galaxy 1, which wouldn't fit on the Switch, like for the Yoshi controls and whatnot. But with the Switch 2's mouse cons, I believe this problem would be mostly alleviated now. So with all of those reasons considered, along with the fact that this is already being rumored, I find this very likely for Mario's 40th anniversary. Next up is another game I find to be very likely to be released for Mario's 40th anniversary, that being a Nintendo Switch 2 edition of Mario Wonder. With the sequel to Mario Wonder, or the next 2D installment in the Mario series, still being most likely a few years away still, I find this a great way to hold Mario fans over until the next 2D Mario game. Along with the fact that even though this would probably require more effort than Galaxy 2 Remastered, it still wouldn't take that much effort to make, you know? Since all they would pretty much have to do for this is just enhance the visuals and put some small amount of new content in there, like a couple new levels, a new world, some new badges, or new characters. It would make for a fun, albeit most likely short experience for Mario fans, while also being very available for Mario's 40th anniversary and being on the easier side to make. And if we look past the obvious reasons, don't you think it's a little bit weird that New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe got a free Switch 2 upgrade, but Mario Wonder didn't? It's almost like they're saving it for something, I don't know. So with all of that considered, just like Galaxy 2 Remastered, this would be an obvious and likely inclusion for Mario's 40th anniversary. Next up, we get into a possible game that I find to be pretty likely for Mario's 40th, although not as likely as the previous two mentioned games. That being a New Super Mario Bros. Collection pack of New Super Mario Bros. DS, New Super Mario Bros. Wii, and New Super Mario Bros. 2. I find this to be less likely as it doesn't have as many reasons to exist as the original Mario All-Stars or Mario 3D All-Stars. I say that because the New Super Mario Bros. Games, especially the ones after the first one, are incredibly similar to each other in mechanics and art style and whatnot. So there isn't a lot to differentiate each one of them from another to put them all in a collection pack, because I feel like if you played one of them, which one of them is already on the Switch, then you've pretty much played them all. But I still find this to be pretty likely just because Nintendo's tendency to re-release their old games on current hardware will always live on, and these are old games, and they would be easy to port over, and they would probably sell a lot, and Mario's 40th anniversary is right around the corner, so all of this adds up to a very easy thing for Nintendo to do. And also, yeah, there's always the problem of the first New Super Mario Bros. And 2 both being on handheld, so Nintendo would have to find a way to work around that because the Switch and Switch 2 don't have bottom screens. And those games did use the bottom screens to some extent, but it wasn't like integral to the gameplay or whatever, and I feel like it would be pretty easy to just incorporate whatever the bottom screens did into the general UI of the games. But anyways, I do think there are some things Nintendo can do to make this collection like really cool. Like they can add multiplayer for the original New Super Mario Bros. And New Super Mario Bros. 2, they can fully remake the minigames from the first New Super Mario Bros. And they can also include the levels from the DLC packs for New Super Mario Bros. 2. But knowing Nintendo, they probably won't do any of that, will just make this collection as bare bones as possible. And also, yeah, I know that there was that leak for the parent box art for this game, but that was proven to be fake, so I don't think that like at all increases or decreases the likelihood of this game existing. So either way, I think this is a pretty possible game to be released for Mario's 40th anniversary. Next up is something I honestly find to be more likely than the New Super Mario Bros. Collection, which I don't know why is after it, is DLC for Mario Kart World. So I honestly think in terms of course quantity, Mario Kart World is really lacking, especially for an $80 game, and DLC would really benefit benefit it. So obviously some new courses would help, but I think this DLC would be cool if it was in the style of Donkey Kong Bonanza, because it is very strange that Donkey Kong and Pauline only have like one costume each and Diddy Kong isn't in the game yet. So some DLC that includes some new costumes for Donkey Kong and Pauline, along with some additions of new characters like Diddy Kong, Dixie Kong, Kid Pauline, and Void Kong and Co. And maybe even a new course stylized around Donkey Kong Bonanza or directly based off of it would make for a really cool DLC package. And there is actually some evidence to support this, albeit how concrete it is up to debate. So the voice actors for Void Kong and I'm not gonna say, I know the game is like a month old now, but I'm still not gonna spoil it, are found in the credits of Mario Kart World, but to my knowledge are nowhere to be found in the actual game. And maybe people assume this is foreshadowing Mario Kart World DLC that adds these two as playable characters, and I honestly agree. So this is like the only thing in the video that actually has some levels of strong evidence behind it that isn't just like rumors. So because of all of this, I believe that Mario Kart World DLC, possibly centered around Donkey Kong Bonanza, is a sure thing for Mario's 40th anniversary. Next up, we have something somewhat niche, but also strangely likely for Mario's 40th anniversary, and that being Nintendo bringing back Super Mario Bros. 35 and rebranding it as Super Mario Bros. 40. So basically just the same thing, but now with 5 more players. And obviously, yeah, they can do more beyond that, like adding some new modes stylized around different games like Mario 3 or Mario World. But honestly, I remember Mario 35 being weirdly, like, really popular while it was around, and if they just do the same thing and add a little bit more, then it will probably be an even bigger hit this time around. So yeah, another easy but also really logical thing for Nintendo to do for Mario's 40th. So we're now stepping out of the territory of games that I'm pretty certain will be released for Mario's 40th anniversary to games that I'm not sure are as likely to be released for Mario's 40th. Starting off with a new Mario Sports title. So we usually do get a couple of these each console generation, and I do think it's pretty inevitable that we will get one in the next 1 to 2 years. Along with the fact that Camelot, who has developed some Mario Sports titles, is apparently very close to completion with their next game. But I don't think the stars have quite aligned yet for the next Mario Sports title to release so soon, and I just don't think it would be a very good celebration of Mario's 40th anniversary unless they do like something really crazy. So I do think it's more likely than the rest of the hypothetical games I'm going to talk about, but not as likely as the previous games I talked about. Afterwards, we have something that I do think has some level of merit to coming true, and that is a new mainline Yoshi game, more likely a new 2D mainline Yoshi game. We usually get one of these per Nintendo console, and I do think the Yoshi series does need some serious level of redemption after Crafted World. This year also marks Yoshi's 35th anniversary, and Nash Weedle, who is a very wishy-washy leaker, so take everything he says with a huge grain of salt, has said that a new Yoshi game is coming to the Switch too, and development for it began mid last year. So I think a Yoshi game on the same level of Yoshi's Woolly World in terms of just everything, especially its art style, on the Switch 2 would be really cool. And it would be even cooler if it was a 3D Yoshi game, although I don't think that's as likely, sadly. So I rate the likelihood of a new Yoshi game being released for Mario's 40th anniversary to be like 6 out of 10, kind of near the middle, you know? The next two games kind of exist in the same wavelength of likelihood for me, that being Mario Maker 3 and Luigi's Mansion 4. I could totally see either of these filling the spot for the big 40th anniversary game if it isn't 3D Mario, but once you look at the likelihood of these games individually, it starts to lean towards the lesser side. Specifically for Maker 3, I just don't know what they could add besides like new game styles like Mario Wonder and whatnot, which I don't think would be enough to justify the existence of a Maker 3. They could obviously make it like Mario Maker 3D and you're able to edit 3D levels, but that would be like a bit too complex and would take away the simplicity of Mario Maker, which is kind of its appeal. Now I could totally be wrong, and maybe Nintendo could totally make like a 3D Mario Maker work, but I don't know. But just looking past that, I feel like they can't innovate upon Mario Maker 2 for Maker 3 as much as they innovated upon Mario Maker 1 for Maker 2. So obviously they could make it happen, it's just that they either possibly take away one of the main appeals of Mario Maker or make a Mario Maker 2.5, not really a Mario Maker 3. I feel like Luigi's Mansion 4 is way more justified to exist, but usually Luigi Mansion games tend to release during, Halloween time. And if they still wanted to release it during Halloween time this year, then I feel like that's kind of past already. Or they just announce it way in advance, which would be, kind of lame, but they could obviously do that. I mean, they kind of did the same thing for Luigi's Mansion 3, where they announced it during the September 2018 Direct and then released it during the fall of 2019 so they could do the same thing here, but I don't know. So I guess between the two, Maker 3 would make more sense for the big 40th anniversary game since, you know, it's Mario, not Luigi. But I'm just not that sure how likely it is for either of these games to release that soon. So now we can get to the one you have all been waiting for, the next 3D Mario being the big 40th anniversary game. And here's the thing, I think it is totally possible for us to see at least a first glimpse or teaser of it this year, but it is absolutely not releasing before the winter of 2026, maybe the summer of that year. And yeah, you know, that's obviously because of the elephant in the room, Donkey Kong Bonanza, which was developed by the Mario Odyssey team. Because even if it was only the younger devs of the Odyssey team working on Bonanza and the other half is currently working on the next big 3D Mario, and if we are to believe that the next 3D Mario is going to be even bigger than Odyssey, then that's just not enough developers to develop it quick enough for it to release before late next year. And even if this game is far enough in development for it to release at a reasonable time next year, then we also have to consider that Nintendo probably doesn't want this big next 3D Mario to be so close in release to Donkey Kong Bonanza so it doesn't like compete with it. So yeah, even if we believe that this game has been in development for at least a relatively long time, this game only has presumably half the manpower of Odyssey, and Donkey Kong Bonanza released not that long ago, so I really don't see this game releasing before holiday 2026 or even early 2027. But going back to what I said before, yeah, I can totally see Nintendo showing us like a first glimpse or teaser of this game this year. And since Mario is Nintendo's like biggest franchise, I think it's a lot more justifiable for them to show us a first glimpse for this game like way before it releases compared to something like Luigi's Mansion 4. And I'm not dissing Luigi's Mansion, I'm just saying that 3D Mario is naturally going to be a bigger game than Luigi's Mansion 4. It also allows Nintendo to strum up hype for this game for a longer period of time, so, you know, more attention from the media and whatnot. So I think a new 3D Mario, new 3D Zelda, new Smash Bros, and a new Animal Crossing are like the 4 games where it makes sense for Nintendo to give us like a first glimpse or teaser like a relatively long time before they release. So to sum all of this up, a first glimpse or teaser of this game this year, very possible, but for it to release before winter 2026 or early 2027, no, not at all. So if I believe that Luigi's Mansion 4 and the next big 3D Mario won't release until late next year at the earliest, and I'm not even sure if Mario Maker 3 should even exist, then what's the big 40th anniversary Mario game that can release at least somewhat close to Mario's 40th anniversary? And that's where I think a completely brand new original Mario spin-off comes in, and it isn't a sports title nor Maker 3. So this does sound pretty silly at first, I know, but if you do think about it, the big 30th anniversary game was Mario Maker, which was a completely brand new original Mario spin-off game. So who's to say Nintendo won't do that again, especially with how experimental the Switch 2 has been so far in terms of its first-party library. I mean, we're getting the first ever Splatoon spin-off game, we got the first 3D Donkey Kong game in how many decades, we got a sequel to Kirby Air Riders, so a completely brand new original Mario spin-off game that possibly utilizes the Switch 2's features like the mouse cons would fit this selection perfectly. And Nintendo is just naturally experimental, and the games that they have been announcing recently are games that we never would have expected to exist. So a completely brand new and original Mario spin-off game with the same amount of originality and novelty Mario Maker 1 had would be a perfect way to celebrate Mario's 40th anniversary in my opinion. And if this does release like early next year, then that would be close enough to Mario's 40th anniversary for this to be the big 40th anniversary game. So yeah, that's about it. And if you want to see the likeliness rankings of everything discussed in this video so far, then here it is. So yeah, that's about all I have. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.